everyone, and thanks for joining. My name is Tracy Cook, and I'm the online media manager for ModernAnalyst.com, the premier community for business analysts. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar entitled Technical Skills Every Business Analyst Should Master or at least Understand. Today's webinar will last approximately 60 minutes, including the question and answer session at the end. Please be sure to submit your questions in advance using the questions feature on the GoToWebinar software. I'd like to introduce our speaker. Today's featured speaker is Steve Blaze, PMP, PMI, PBA, author, consultant, teacher, and coach. Steve has over 55 years of experience in information technologies. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Tracy. And we're going to talk about skills. And let's start right off. No introduction here, no getting ready paragraph, but jump right into it. There are not even all of the skills that business analysts need. Put them kind of conveniently into categories: communication skills, problem-solving skills, and so forth, thinking skills. And way down the bottom there, it says technical skills. Now, I know that the title says technical skills, but we're not really technical oriented here. And you may be thinking in terms of a different meaning here for technical. Ultimately, the technical skills that the business analyst needs are primarily so that we can understand the technical talk that the developers and the DBAs and the architects and all those guys are going to throw at us, mostly to obfuscate so that we aren't really sure what they're saying. So we want to have enough technical skills to understand that. However, the real technical skills, well, let's take a look at that. Now, that's an awful lot of skills. That's for a business analyst, after 55 years, 56 years now, I don't know that I could say that I mastered all of these. I don't know that anybody might master all. Some of them are even kind of contradictory. So let's take a look at the different skills based on the different roles of business analysts. Now, you might be in one of these roles. I've shown this slide before, and so I'll just kind of briefly go through it. You have on the far left-hand side, you have what we're going to call the embedded business analyst. This is the business analyst who works over on the business side in the problem domain, works for a business person, an executive or something, a senior manager, and may or may not have any technical skills whatsoever, may or may not write actual business requirements, is involved in helping the business understand what's going on. And many times they are also called an SME. Back in the day, we might have called a embedded business analyst something like a super user. So the embedded business analyst does investigation, answers questions, assists on decision making on the business side, provides information. Then you have the business side business analyst. That's one that I coined as the business analyst as opposed to the technical business analyst, which we'll meet later. The business analyst's primary role is to understand what the problem is, define it, and then produce a solution as codified in the business requirements. Now, the business analyst might work with an embedded business analyst. The embedded business analyst being the SME, they might provide the additional information or the more in-depth information that then the business analyst might put into the business requirements. Now, you have a relatively newcomer to the business analyst world, and that's the strategic business analyst. This is somebody who works for PMO. That could be a project management office. It could be a program management office, portfolio management office, one of those management offices, or works directly for an executive committee or an executive directly. And they assist in decision making, assist executive management, do research, They also, in their capacity as part of the PMOs, whatever PMO they happen to be with, they also will identify problems that are then passed on to the business analysts to produce solutions and requirements and solutions and functional specifications. Bringing us to what I call the centroid business analyst, a little copying a word from cluster technology. This business analyst might be called a business systems analyst, a technical business analyst, a system business analyst. What that particular business analyst role does is convert the business requirements into a functional specification, meaning that, of course, they're going to have somewhat significantly more technical knowledge and technical expertise because they have to write more or less technical specifications. Now, that centroid business analyst, the technical business analyst, might work with the business analyst. After all, the business analyst writes the business requirements, or might actually go directly to the embedded business analyst and the business, talking directly to the problem domain, the stakeholders. This particularly happens when the business analyst finishes the job, writes the business requirements, and then goes off to another project, and the centroid business analyst, the technical business analyst, is stuck with it. And I'm not describing a hypothetical situation. Now, the next one of the 7 is the solution side business analyst. Now, I didn't particularly mention here, I have functional specifications. I didn't use the term product backlog here, but you can kind of imagine the word product backlog in the same orange or gold box there. The solution side business analyst works between the product's backlog in Agile or the functional specification in not Agile and the team, providing interpretation, doing things like, we're not going to be able to do this, this doesn't make any sense, can you go clarify this? So they might go back to whatever business analyst is available on the other side. And they write specifically more technical, and they have to be more technical because they are talking to more technical people. The last role business analysts play isn't even listed as a business analyst. That's because in Scrum, all of the members of the team are called developers. They're team members. There is no business analyst in Scrum, and in fact, in most of the Agile approaches, there is no role of business analyst, except for perhaps scaled Agile framework where they are defined. There is no business analyst role. So we're going to call it a team member, and they're the ones who are actually working on the team. They have other duties as well as defining the information. And as the team member, as the business analyst on the solution team, they're in Agile, they're quite adept at doing user stories as opposed to business requirements or functional specs. And I said 7, didn't I? Well, I'll tell you about the 7th here in a second. First of all, let's go back and take a look at the skills needed for each of these categories. And you should be able to pick yourself in there. One of these 7 areas, you say, yeah, that's me. That's the one I belong to. And you might even see something you say, hey, you know what? I'm an F and I want to be a C. You know, that's strategic business analyst. That appeals to me. So let's see what the skills are you might have to need in each area. First of all, as the embedded business analyst, you need, of course, business skills, tact, diplomacy, moderation and conflict resolution skills, presentation skills, facilitation. Because you're working with the business, you're probably going to be calling meetings and stuff. Now, on the business side, business analyst, it seems like there's less skills, but there's more time in each. You're focusing a lot more as the business side business analyst. Your job is to gather information and turn that information, first of all, define a problem and come up with multiple solutions, and then whichever solution is picked, turn that into business requirements, or if you're working agilely, into a product backlog. So you need a set of skills, tool skills like, well, Word, for example, a requirements management tool, perhaps. Of course, your presentation skills. Now, for the strategic business analyst, there's not a completely different, but a considerably different set. Decision support skills, strategic thinking and system thinking, problem analysis. There's that tact and diplomacy again. Mediation, influence. Now, regardless of which of these categories or these roles that you're in, you don't have authority. None of these roles have authority. You say, well, wait, Steve, hold on. I'm a manager of business analysts. And I say, that's good. Yeah, well, then I have authority. Yeah, but your authority is because you're a manager. When you're playing the manager role, you have authority. As a business analyst, you don't, any more than the people working for you as business analysts have authority. So you need influence. And the C needs a lot more influence than probably any of the other roles because you're working with senior executives. They have the authority. Then the centroid. Well, now you need the modeling skills from B, and you need technical skills, some mediation and conflict resolution, writing skills, modeling and graphical skills. For the solution side business analyst, technical influence, modeling, listening, negotiation, and over the team member, you need those tool skills, the agile tool skills primarily, facilitation, because you'll probably be running meetings and facilitating problem solving, and detailed thinking skills, because you're down there in the trenches coming up with solutions and making it happen. So what was that seventh? Yeah, the seventh is a combination of two or more of these. And you can see why it's not really a good place to be, because if you don't have enough skills already for one of these, now you're going to have to do two. And in many cases, for example, the modeling skills for the business side business analyst are not the same modeling skills that you would need for a solution side business analyst. So that, you know, kind of the idea is you want to get one role and kind of stick with it. So all those business analyst skills, and every one of them has communication skills requirements. Now, unfortunately, the communication skills is a big category. It includes a lot of things we already mentioned, like mediation, negotiation, facilitation, writing skills, presentation skills. All of those are all grouped under communication skills, kind of general. And how about analytic skills? Same thing, categorization, prioritization, all of the skills that we use, breaking things down as part of being an analyst. And then problem-solving skills. All of the business analyst roles need those in spades. That's the primary, that's the basis. And well, we can get really technical about those three areas. So here's your business analyst. And if you've taken the webinar with me before, you recognize our friend here who's always got questions. So at any given day, time of the day, of any given day, the business analyst has questions, challenges, problems, and they require specific skills, different skills each time. For example, they might require tool skills like PowerPoint or Excel. You might have a situation where you've got some conflict between two business units going on over some aspect of the requirements or some new feature. Maybe conflict between the business who wants an additional thing and the project, the solution team that wants to hold off to stay within budget. So you would have to have conflict resolution skills. Maybe you're working not necessarily as a strategic business analyst, but you know, since you are a business analyst, you'll go out and analyze the business. They say, we need somebody who analyzes this business. Come help us on this decision. Which means you need research and information gathering skills. Maybe you're working on, as I have, we work with a DBA, and they whenever we wanted to know what data to use and where it was located, they said, look on the entity relationship model. It's on your wall. They send us a copy every time they change the model. We got a copy, and that went on the wall. Don't talk to us until you check the model. So, we got to have understanding of data models here. Have to be able to read a data model. And, maybe we're dealing with some customers and they have some problems. And, they give us an idea of what is going on. They're not sure if it's a symptom. They're not sure if it's a problem. They're not sure what's going on. All they know is there's something wrong. So we have to figure out how we can make it right, which requires analytical skills. Now, let's put these things in context a bit. Let me give you something from Tim Brown. Tim Brown is one of the two fellows who started IDEO, which is a primary and premier design thinking company, probably in the world. He and Kevin Kelly are graduates from Stanford University and went out and created this design thinking. And he wrote a book called Change by Design. And he says that the skills you need are as follows. Observe and understand the needs of people. Empathize, observe, listen between the lines, gain insights on the decisions people make, why they make those decisions, how they feel about the decisions they made, or even making the decision itself. You need communication, observation. We also need to convert these insights into meaningful strategies, understand the problems behind those insights, make them into actionable things that we can do in the business to resolve those particular strategies and insights. We need to be able to convert these insights about people into solutions. If we're dealing with the external customers, develop a product that those people will be able to buy to make their lives better. Internally, we want new processes or new business models. Overall strategies and strategic goals. Solutions that will do something based solely and entirely on the insights that we've gained from understanding the needs of people, that empathy. We want to be able to test them internally, try it out. Is this a good idea? No, not a good idea. All right, get rid of that one. Let's try the next one. Provide to apply the analysis to those prototypes, to those role plays. And finally, to tell stories about those ideas, to spread not just the solutions that we come up with around, but also the problems that generate the solution. A solution is great, but it's a lot more understandable and applicable when you also accompany it with the problem that it solves. Well, we mentioned the different BA roles, but there's also, we might be looking at the BA in any one of those roles, but in a particular context, such as Agile. Okay? So here are some of the roles that we would need in Agile. Communication, that goes almost without saying, but just in case, I'm going to say it all the time. Here's where you're going to need some basic technical skills. Now you say, well, what kind of technical skills are you talking about? Oh, a little bit of programming, some testing, perhaps some knowledge of some of the testing tools that are out there, Cucumber and Gherkin, Selenium, some of the Agile tools. You say, why would I need to know, say, programming? I mean, the developer's not really going to talk to me in code, are they? Well, in Agile, we have this thing, and it's, well, come back here. It's called a T-shaped developer. And that means that you are deeply embedded, you have deep skills in, say, defining requirements, or deep skill in writing user stories and communicating with the users. But you also have shallow skills and other skills. That's not the only thing that you can do. That would be I-shaped. The T-shape also, through osmosis or propinquity, has a bit of programming knowledge because you're working with the team on a constant basis. You've got a bit of testing knowledge, a bit of database knowledge. So in Agile, you're expected to pitch in and help out. Next week, you could be called in by the testers who say, hey, we're really behind. We need some help. We need you to sit down and help us. And maybe a developer may say, hey, come on, I've got to do some pair programming. I need you to help me write this code. I need a sounding board. You want me to write code? No, I just need to talk to you while we're doing it. Maybe you can keep me going. T-shaped. We need estimating tools, even though I know business analysts aren't into estimating, and I didn't include estimating as a skill as a standard BA. The project manager will take care of that, or somebody else. They'll ask us how long is it going to take to do something, and we'll tell them, and that will be it. But in Agile, you're going to be involved with the planning game. You'll be involved with planning poker. You'll be estimating backlog items along with the rest of the team for what you're going to be doing in the next 2 weeks. You need team player skills. This might be one of the more difficult things that a business analyst has to do, who moves from being a business analyst over to being on the team, because as a business analyst, as you are probably, I have been most of my career, a lone ranger. Now I've been on a team before where there's a team of business analysts, but it's a rare circumstance. And of course, your collaboration skills. Now that down at the bottom is a different kind of skill, and that's something to take into consideration if you're considering moving into Agile. You're going to be delivering something every 2 weeks, or every 1 week if you're working on a 1 week iteration. That means when you get it done, all right, we got it done. The product owner looked at it and loved it. We're good to go. Yes, let's go out and celebrate. Not so fast. We have to start and do it all over again starting Monday. In other words, it's the same kind of skills that the newspaper people have, who have to get out a new press every single day. They have to put out a new paper. Or, under the deadlines that somebody like Saturday Night Live, a brand new live show every Saturday night. Now you're looking ahead into the future, and you say, well, are we still going to be doing what we're doing now? It seems like there's some real change going on in the industry. And yes, you are right. We're moving from, as I have said many times, from being process-oriented business analysts to being more data-oriented. We're talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data, data analytics, business analytics, predictive analytics, behavioral analytics, the Internet of Things. All of these things are data-oriented, based on data. No process. There's no process behind an analytical. You just give me the question, and let's come up with the answer. So what kind of skills am I going to need to move in that direction? Well, you're going to need a lot more graphing skills. Graphs and charts and so forth, knowing the wide range of graphs and charts we have, and be able to visualize the data, create data visualizations so that other people can see what's going on. You just can't show them the data. You give them columns of numbers, that doesn't help. But something like a graph of multicolors and lines going this way and pictures going that way. You'll also have to have some kind of familiarity, increasing familiarity with statistical tools. That includes Excel. And I put that there so that you don't kind of panic as you start thinking about, well, you want me to learn how to write code in R or Python, or I have to learn regression analysis. No, you just have to be familiar with them. Basically, you have to have better math skills in general. If you're matophobic, and if you have 4 numbers in a row and you start getting pale and sweating, then maybe you would look for something other than data orientation. You might grab a job as a prompt writer for a ChatGPT or something. And one of the bigger skills that you find you're going to need in data orientation is out of the organizational box thinking. Basically system thinking, but we're business analysts. We've been doing mostly internal stuff. business processes, improvement, process improvement, Six Sigma stuff, and a new accounts payable system. Maybe we're working on the requirements for new channels for the customers. That's as far outside as we go. But when you're talking about data, especially you're talking about big data, the first question you're asking is, where can I go to get the information to solve this problem? And I need to go outside of the data warehouse, outside the transactional data stores. That means outside the organization. Where is that data out there that I can pull in, put into the data lake, and then bring down and analyze it and put it into our analytics? And going even one step further, it doesn't really exist out there anywhere. How can I create that data that we can then use to answer questions about what is the next big thing that people are going to want to buy in 2025? The last set is the business and management skills, and this is a lot easier, only in that there are only two. So here's the question. Over 15 years or so, they did a group. I don't know how more recent it is, but through about 2015, they were doing surveys to find out from companies all over the world what were the primary skills that they were looking for senior managers and executives, because they were having problem filling those ranks. They couldn't fill them from the inside because there weren't people qualified to be coming up, so they had to go outside. So what were they looking for that they couldn't find internally? And it boiled down to two specific skills. So here you are. I'll give you two skills that if you have them, you're in line to go up into management, because they're dire need of people with these skills. Can you guess what they are? Nancy, I give you a few minutes there, a few seconds there to see if you can guess. Here they are. Well, communication skills, but these are both kind of communication skills. Here they are. First, decisiveness. Now, I didn't say decision making. Decisiveness does not mean that you make the right decision all the time. The studies have shown that even the executives who are being paid millions of dollars a year only make right decisions a third of the time. I don't know how they figured that out, but there's been several studies and they all come up with about the same number. This definition that you have here and the one that's going to follow are both from OPM, Office of Personnel Management for the US federal government. They defined these two as also being the top two needs for the senior executive service of the US government. That's the top guys, the guys that make the most money and make the decisions, right under your secretaries working for the president. They define this. This is the standard, if you will. Decisiveness means making well-informed, effective, and timely decisions, even when data are limited or solutions produce unpleasant consequences, while at the same time understanding the impact and implications of the decision being made. The timely means not too fast. We don't want a knee-jerk reaction and give the first decision a gut reaction, and we don't want you waiting so long that options time out. Basically, what we're talking about is somebody who is decisive has a process for making a decision and the discipline to follow that process. If you have that, you will be considered decisive and be eligible for that executive role. The second, have you figured it out yet? Right there in the middle of a business analyst qualifications, the business analyst skills. Communication is a business analyst skill, problem solving. Identifying and analyzing problems, weighting relevance and accuracy of information, generating and evaluating alternate solutions, and making and presenting appropriate recommendations. If you come up and you say, here is the solution, you would not qualify. You come up and say, gee, we've got several options you have, and for option A, here's the advantages, and here's the disadvantages, and here's the cost, and here's the benefits, and here's option B, and here's option C, the same thing. Here's the time you have to make a decision on any of these. My recommendation is and this is why I'm making this recommendation, and this is why I'm not making these other recommendations. Now you're considered to have problem-solving skills. Well, those are all specific skills. Let's go back and take a look at the general skills like communication. Did you pick up the pattern there? Did communication kind of appear everywhere? Yeah. The basic communication, the basic skill of a business analyst is going to be communication, and that can be extremely technical. So what's underlying those communication skills? Well, asking questions. Interviewing, which is asking questions, getting answers. Elicitation, which is asking questions and understanding the answers, meaning that theoretically you would ask more questions. Engagement means asking questions with empathy based on understanding the person, not just the answers. And asking the questions based on the fact that you understand the person. Listening. Well, you might have suspected that was going to be there. Anything in communication is going to involve listening. And telling stories. Telling stories? How did that get there? Telling stories? Well, let's take a look at these and see if we can have some way of understanding why we aren't very good in any of these and what we can do to be better. First of all, asking questions. We're not good as adults at asking questions. We don't have a whole lot of curiosity, right? Communication requires listening. Yes, I can tell you something, but if I'm not listening to what you have to say, we are not communicating. If you're not listening to what I have to say, I can talk all I want, and we're not communicating. Listening requires asking questions. If I'm talking and you have nothing to respond to, then I'm not going to be listening. But if I ask you a question, what do you think about this? I have to stop and listen to the answer. Most of us do not have the skill of asking questions. Most of that is because we've lost our ability to be curious. Why, you say? Why was that the case? I'm not sure I get you, Steve. Why? Why aren't we able to ask questions? Well, let's see. As children, we certainly did. We would ask why, and somebody would say because, and we would ask why again, why this, why is the sky blue, why is the grass green, why, how can Santa Claus get around the world in 24 hours? Why is a bunny have long ears? And eventually, we, the adults, or when we were kids, our adults, would eventually say, go ask your mother. Go ask your Uncle Fred. Go ask your teachers. I don't know. Leave me alone. And we started to learn that if we had questions, that, there's a limit and they're not going to answer the questions. Maybe we better answer them ourselves. But mostly we stop asking questions to a degree. And then we're still asking questions as children, and we get into school and we're in class and we realize that we're the ones who are being asked questions of. We're the ones who have to answer the questions, and we have to answer them right. We need to know all the answers. If we have all the answers, then there's no sense in asking questions. And so we kind of don't ask questions. You're in this big hall of people, and the teacher says, "All right, any questions?" And nobody raises their hands. And typically, the questions I didn't ask the professor are the exact ones that are on the exam that I should have asked, but we don't. And there are some other reasons why we don't. We'll see here in a second. But there are other why, even more whys. For example, you went on a job interview, and somebody said at the end of the interview or at some point, "Do you have any questions for us?" And your thought is, well, wait a minute, I'm being hired for my knowledge. I better not ask any questions because it'll sound like I don't know anything. Again, we're learning not to ask questions. Then we go to meetings, and we get a job, and we're in meetings, and the moderator says, okay, let's review this on Thursday. Any questions? And I say, well, yeah, I got it. Okay, Thursday. I'll be ready on Wednesday. I think he said Wednesday. I'm pretty sure I know what he wants, I think. No questions, because I think I know. Why should I ask a question if I know what it is, even though, as you can see, it's wrong? She's saying, well, gee, well, nobody else has asked any questions. I don't really know what's going on. I really should be asking questions, but I'm not sure. I better keep my mouth shut. They all understand it, so I don't want to show that I'm stupid. And this guy over here says it's too late in the day to ask questions. I need some more coffee. I'll work on it later. Now, part of this also is that we are accustomed to answer questions without answers. How's it going? Good morning. How do you feel? Can you imagine if you said, hey, Steve, how do you feel? How's it going? You say, oh, man, I got a bit of pains in my shoulders, and, my daughter is run off with a rock star, and I got to work on the house, and I go on for 25 minutes answering your question, how's it going? How do you feel? You would be totally surprised. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't want an answer. I was just being polite. Yeah, but you asked a question. So now we've got a whole bunch of questions that, we're not going to answer. Not to mention the rhetorical questions, such as, so are you ready for dinner? Is that a rhetorical question? We're sitting here and we're at a restaurant. We've already ordered. What am I going to say? No, I'm sorry. You're right. I better go change for dinner. I'll be back in an hour. And then there's the whole idea that instead of waiting for an answer or even paying attention to the answer, we're focusing on the next question we're going to ask, or we're focusing on our next statement. So even if you do answer the question, it falls on deaf ears. Mr. Miller, George Nathan Miller, had a statement to say that. He was a philosopher and a mathematician and a linguist, professor emeritus at Princeton University. I think he's probably gone now, but he had this quote: conversation in America is a competition in which the first person to draw a breath loses. Well, it turned out that I had 4 whys, and I figured I might as well go with Ono and do a 5 whys here. So here's the 5th why. Fear. If I ask a question, they will think I don't know anything. They'll think I'm stupid. What if they don't know the answer? Then I'm going to embarrass them and embarrass me for asking. We're both going to be humiliated. We'll both look like idiots. And what if they give me the answer and I don't understand it? Can I ask again? We're online here, and I didn't hear it quite. The communication isn't well. How many times can I say, could you repeat that? I better just stop. What will he think if I ask the wrong question? What will everybody think if I ask the wrong question? A question that I shouldn't be asking. And will they be annoyed if I ask too many questions? Will they be annoyed if I ask a question? My culture doesn't allow me to ask questions. We're not supposed to. We have to save face and don't ask questions. In other words, through our lives after children, we've been trained not to ask questions. Whereas questioning, curiosity, were once innate. That's how we learned. It was automatic. Any thought that came to our head, we would ask a question about it. Now we no longer do it. So we have to reclaim our curiosity. How do you do that? How about this? Get a document, an email, a report, a news article, anything with writing. Select a paragraph, randomly, just any paragraph. Take the whole email, right? And in the paragraph, ask a question for the paragraph. And go to the next paragraph and ask another question about that paragraph. Try to decide what assumptions you're making about what the writer is saying. Try to address the assumptions the writer is making about your knowledge. Battle your primacy bias, your availability heuristic, your confirmation bias. Challenge any conclusions that you come up with. Make a conclusion by reading that paragraph and then ask a question about it. Now, let me give you an example here. This is adapted from Jerry Weinberg's book, Are Your Lights On? It's a great book, short book, easy to read, and it will help you learn to be better problem analysis, but also better critical thinking. What he did was, in 3 or 4 pages, it was a long piece, he analyzed the poem, Mary Had a Little Lamb, which goes like this: Mary had a little lamb, fleece was white as snow, everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. And we all know what that means. It means Mary had a fat lamb. Or is that what it means? What about Mary had dinner? So she decided to have a little lamb steak for dinner, and the fleece was the potatoes and other things that were as white as snow. And obviously, the dinner went wherever Mary went. Perhaps Mary is a con person, a con artist. Now, in the lexicon of cons and such, a lamb is a target, somebody who will fall prey to a con artist. And when you take money from a lamb, you fleece the lamb. And what you want to do as a con artist is get that lamb to follow you wherever you go so that you can take more money from them. And Jerry had several other possible interpretations of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Now, it's not that you're going to come up with a right answer or wrong answer. It's to get you thinking. In that paragraph, was there a word that you wanted to check to make sure you truly understood what it means? This is a habit to get into. I did this a couple of years ago, and I find that as I'm reading a book or anything, I see a word, and it's cool because if you're doing a Kindle, you can just click on it, and it gives you the definition. And I find that I'm checking an awful lot of words and finding out my thought of what that word meant is not right. I was off. That's not the word. I've also found the author misusing a word according to the dictionary anyway. So we look up these words. That's great. You find that you improve your vocabulary, but you're addressing your assumption. You assumed you knew that word. And many times you say, oh, that's interesting. Let me check that out. And you go online, you go to Google, and you Google something, and you learn a little bit more. In other words, your curiosity is coming back. And more it will come back. And as a little extra bonus, it improves your critical thinking skills as well. Now, we're talking about both listening and asking questions. You want to be able to ask questions better. The better you ask questions, the more likely you are to ask questions. So, I have this phrase, honor the pause. And the idea is that just as George Miller said, that the conversations in America are competition in which the first person to take a breath loses. Well, that breath is a pause, and we want to honor that. We want to make sure it's there. So try this. Somebody's asking you a question, any question, with a possible exception of what's your name. Count. Just count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, answer. The longer you wait, the better that, Now, when you do this, again, psychologically, the studies have confirmed this, the questioner will assume that you're taking the question seriously, and you're really thinking about it. That will make them feel valued. And that will also make them take your answer more seriously. But also, before you answer the question, if you count to 5, what your brain does is say, hey, wait a minute, we got a vacuum here. What's going on? What are you doing? You're supposed to answer the question. Oh, okay, wait a minute, what was that question? It automatically will start thinking about the question. And again, we know that from the functional MRIs. The neuroscientists have checked that out and said, by George, that's what's going on. The brain says, oh, what was the last thing we did? He's not doing anything. He's pausing. What was the last thing? Why is this going on? So therefore, you come up with a better answer, which continues the conversation on a larger area.
Time check.
Thank you. I'm going to have to talk real fast. We count to 5 before asking the next question. And when you're the questioner, you ask a question, they give you an answer. And so you say, and then you go on with the next question. The responder will automatically assume that you value their answer, and therefore they will give you more information subsequently. Also, as many policemen and detectives and so forth know, if you wait before you ask the next question, the responder will probably think, that wasn't the answer we're looking for. Let me try again. I didn't tell him enough. Maybe I should tell him more. All right, I did it. I killed him. If you wait, we as human beings abhor a vacuum. So the responder will try to fill that vacuum. Not normal. Some won't. Sociopath probably won't. It also, of course, as with the questioner, forces you to think about the answer you just heard. Counting to 5 again, the brain says, all right, what's going on here? Let me look at that answer and see why you're pausing. And that produces a better next question. Now, storytelling, explanations that make sense to the listener, that provide context for whatever it is that you're talking about, gives a beginning and an end to the whole thing. The story contains a recognition, achievement of a goal, and it includes an emotional factor, a positive feeling about achieving the goal, a positive feeling about solving the problem. A particular form of storytelling is data storytelling, using data visualizations to illustrate the story. So you say, storytelling? Steve, come on. Storytelling in business? What's going on here? Well, you are using storytelling now. Your models are storytelling. The use case is nothing more than a story. In fact, we call it a main success scenario when we're talking about part of that use case. Alternate scenario is nothing more than a story or part of it. When we're gathering information, we can use storytelling. A day in the life, if you've ever used that technique. That's nothing more than tell me a story of what you've done from the time you come to work till the time you leave. Many times I've used this phrase, I don't quite understand what it is you're saying. Tell it to me like I'm 6 years old. Tell me a story. Every presentation that's done should be a story. And if it isn't, you know it and you want to walk out. Oh, that was so boring. Oh, man. But if they tell you a story, you are enraptured. You're encapsulated. You go, yeah, I got it. Our whole lives have stories, movies, books, plays. People will tell stories. And of course, in Agile, it's all about the user stories. So do you use stories? Your resume is a story. It's the story of your work life. How do you tell your story? Does it really tell the story of your skills, your abilities, your accomplishments? Or does it simply list all of the places you've worked, the titles you've had, and the dates you had them? One sentence about what you did. Instead, can you imagine a resume with none of that? Oh, down the bottom, you might list date, organization, title. But in the body of the resume, you tell, I did this for this company and it resulted in this positive thing. I did this and it resulted in this positive thing. I did this and then I learned how to do this and now I can do this. The story of my evolution over the past 55 years of business. Other stories that you deal with, business cases or proposals are all stories about why they should adopt this business case of this proposal. A new system or feature that you're describing is a story. Tell it in its context. The business's mission and strategies that appear in the annual report, that's the story of the business. This is a story of what we're doing. Any problem or solution is better presented as a story. We have a system that's bad, but yeah, it's a lot more understandable if we describe the system, why it's bad, what the consequences are of it being bad. Descriptions of issues and challenges the same way. But Steve, we don't tell stories. This is business. There's no crying in baseball. There's no emotion in business. Come on. Listen, I think he's the one to blame. Back in the 50s, we watched Dragnet. Of course, you may not have seen it, but that's Jack Webb as Joe Friday. I don't want any emotions. Just give me the facts, man. Just the facts. Don't embroider. No stories. Just the facts. That's kind of like what we do in business. Just the facts. But we'll find out that telling a story is going to be a great help to us as business analysts. So how do you tell stories? First of all, you can get those paragraphs, remember, that I said would pull out of a news article or randomly off the web or an email, and paraphrase what you see. Use your own words. Write it down. Now, writing it down helps clear your mind while you're thinking rather than just talking. Or don't just think it. Either say it out loud or write it down. Now you're telling a story about whatever it is that you just read. Play the what's going on game. Get a picture, any picture, random picture of anything, and try to figure out what went on before the picture took place, what's going on in the picture, what are the relationships of the people in the picture, and what's going to happen after the picture. Tell a story about that picture. Yeah, well, that might be a little more difficult. So let me give you the easy and the absolutely most guaranteed way of learning to be a storyteller painlessly. Tell stories. Start off by reading to kids. You got kids from 1 to kindergarten, you read them stories. Dr. Seuss, Goodnight Moon, the Curious George, the Possum Florence or whatever her name is. We read these stories. And if you don't have children of that age, my children are all long gone, so I read to my grandchildren. Now my grandchildren are all too old to read to. I'll have great-grandchildren in a year or so. How about nieces, nephews, neighborhood kids? I spent a time when my kids were in grade school. I read to a second grade class. Once a month I came in for an hour and I read out of a book. All sorts of opportunities to reach children. Now, that gets them started, you know, and you all the pediatricians and the child psychologists and they'll all tell you, read to your kids. You want to get them started so that they get into school faster and learn faster, read to them. Some kids will be, as you read to them, they'll learn to read themselves. Cool! Now take it one step further and tell them the story. If you have read Goodnight Moon for about 8 times, you certainly can read it by memory. Same thing with the story of Curious George or Cat in the Hat. So instead, you don't pull the book out. You just say, okay, here's the story, and you tell them the story. Then the positive thing of this is just tremendous. The kids learn to their imagination rather than depending on the pictures in the book. They start imagining it with their imagination. So you're making their imagination better. They are the biggest critics. So, Dad, you didn't tell us about the Curious George's yellow hat. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you about Curious George's yellow hat. They'll remember things that you forget. They're more interactive. They're listening to what you're saying because they're imagining it. And it's more real when they're imagining it than it is in the picture. Why? Well, we know, again, because of the functional MRIs, but because of what lights up in the brains. And for you, you're learning to be a storyteller painlessly. The story itself is significantly more memorable being told than being read. I don't remember the stories that my father and mother read to us 70 years ago, but I do remember 70 years ago, my father told us a story that lasted over several nights about Julius, the cockroach who loved jelly beans. I still remember the description of him on a sponge in the water of a kitchen sink as it was overflowing, yelling, "Save the jelly beans!" 70 years. That's something that you would like to have. And as you go on, you'll find that you are now telling stories. As for the data stories, we have 2 ideas here. The story behind the graphics. I got graphs, I got charts. What's the story behind it? Nobody likes to just look at graphs and charts. We're going to bring them alive with our stories. On the other hand, we're going to tell a story, and it's nice to have a little data to prove that story. because, the managers are looking for that data. By telling the story, we add human factors to charts and graphs and numbers or more. And we use charts and graphs to illustrate or support the story we're telling, which kind of makes it more interesting. So here we are. We'll wrap up with this, and hopefully there'll be time for at least a couple of questions. Here's what you do. You look at all of the skills that are on that page and all of the skills that you know of, and you can go to websites and they'll tell you the skills you need as a business analyst. Find out what skills you want to work on. A skill that you don't really have that well. Maybe you want to move into data business analyst, and you need some of those data skills. Maybe you want to move up in the organization, so I need some other skills. Or it's a skill you have, like problem solving, communication. You wouldn't be a business analyst without them, but you want to improve them, make you better qualified to move up in the corporation. So pick 10 that you want to do that with. For each one, state a purpose for acquiring or improving that skill. Why do you want that particular skill? What are you going to do with it? What goal might you want to achieve by having that skill? That is strictly for motivation. Then you review the list and select one and only one skill to work on. You can only work on one at a time. Then devise a game that focuses on that skill. Make sure there is scorekeeping. Now, this is based on dieting companies. If you're going to go on a diet and all that, and you want to get enrolled in the program to lose some weight, they always tell you keep a food journal. Keep score of what you eat. What they don't tell you is that you're going to lose weight if that's all you do. Because what you're doing is informing your brain that this is important. I want to keep this aware. Like at a party, you can't hear what everybody's saying because everyone's noise, but if somebody says your name, you're going to hear it. Well, you just told your brain, this is the food I'm eating. And so you start off, you write down, I had 3 bags of potato chips today, and tomorrow I had 3 bags of potato chips. In a week or so, you find that, I only had 2, and I didn't even want a third one. A couple of more weeks go by, and you're not eating potato chips at all, and you don't even miss them. And you never made a conscious decision to do that. Well, where did the conscious decision come from? It came from your brain. So that's what we're talking about doing. So I had a couple of kids, young kids to me, young men, in Phoenix, Arizona, working for an Indian company, and we were working with this kind of soft skills stuff. And in 2 different meetings around the 4th of July, week of 4th of July in 2015, they both asked for the same thing. They said, how can I become more active in meetings? Say something. I don't say anything. I just don't, I want to speak up. How do I make myself do that? I said, okay, make a score sheet. Put the dates down, and then put down the meetings. And then in that cell, the intersecting cell, write down how many times you asked a question and how many times you made a statement. And give yourself a quota. You must ask at least one question, and make at least one statement for every meeting, which is anytime you're in 3 or more people. And just keep a record of it. That's all you have to do. Well, I received an email from one of them, I don't know which one, in August, a couple of months later, who said that he was doing that. He did it for about, I think he said 5 weeks. He said sometime in the month of August, I found that I didn't have to use the scoring anymore. I was talking in the meeting without any problem. I had no fears. So you play the game, you keep the score, your brain does it for you, you win the game, and you go back and get the next skill. And that's how you add those skills so that you can become whatever business analyst you want. Bringing us to the time when hopefully there's a few minutes left for some questions.
Steve, thank you so much. Yet again, such a great presentation. I'm going to just select a couple of questions here, and I'll get you to try and answer them. The first one probably will be quick, but Steve, can you provide an example of a collaboration skill?
I'm not sure whether open-mindedness is a skill, but a lot of there's a difference between abilities and skills, and you can just go on the net, and there's a whole bunch of articles about the difference between abilities and skills. Basically, abilities are innate and skills are learned. But I found that a lot of these so-called abilities that are supposedly innate, like open-mindedness, can be learned. And so I'm going to say that open-mindedness is a skill for collaboration. Patience is a skill for collaboration. Mediation is a skill you need for collaboration. There are some who say there's a specific collaboration skills and it means something. But like you, I'm not sure that there aren't other skills that go into it. I wouldn't say decision-making or problem-solving are necessarily skills for collaboration, but patience, team playing, respect for others, open-mindedness, those would be skills that you would need to get into collaboration.
Thank you, Steve. That is great. We've had so many wonderful comments for you. Just a quick, this is more of actually a comment, and maybe you want to comment on it. Sometimes I don't ask questions to keep meetings on track, especially if there are multiple participants. If I were to ask all of my questions, such sessions would run out of time and cost too much, but I also take such chats offline. And Steve, any comments on that?
Actually, if you had said, how do I get my questions answered without having a meeting go over, I would have said, take them offline. It requires a certain amount of prioritization skills, a sense, an empathy for the group, to be able to understand what questions you can ask that will help the group. There may be questions that only you will be able to benefit from the answer. There may be questions that pretty much everybody might get a feeling, especially the answer to a question which might take you in a different direction or maybe contradict something that's already going on. Further conversation would be questions that you would want to ask. Others, take offline as you suggest.
Thank you, Steve. You've got a lot of great comments. So we are out of time. We'd like to thank Steve again for such a great presentation. We'd like to thank our audience as well for attending today's Modern Analyst webinar. And I'd like to remind everyone that today's session, along with the slides, will be archived at the ModernAnalyst.com website within a few business days. This concludes today's event, and we hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Thanks, Steve.
Happy holidays, everyone.